The Deutsche Telekom story. Looks like the parent company of T-Mobile is looking for some dough. They're looking for investors. They are trying to improve the infrastructure portion of their networking. For those of you that are not really familiar with what it takes to build out proper networking, it doesn't matter if you're doing home internet or if you're doing wireless services with tower sites and things of that nature. It takes a lot of fiber. Okay, and a lot of older infrastructure is starting to become obsolete. It's not sufficient. Think about all the old copper wiring that provided the DSL services of the last 20 or 30 years. That has to be upgraded. A lot of the older coaxial infrastructure from the 80s and the 90s, it's starting to go bad. It's gotten damaged or frayed. Maybe it's not, as dependable, reliable, like in the case of, my regional providers here. Anyways, it takes a big investment. These companies have to reinvest in the company infrastructure for them to remain viable and offer good services. Reliable is important. You got to be dependable. Home internet's no joke. Wireless is no joke. People make 911 calls. So all these things are really important. The reliability piece is crucial. So what Deutsche Telekom is doing in this program to raise money and funds for the investment into their fiber networking is they're providing incentives, and these incentives are geared towards investors for stakes within the company. So, hey, give us lots of money so we can build out this fiber network and upgrade our networking, and we'll give you ownership within the company in the form of shares. So there's kind of like you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of deal. And then what they could do is they can fund the infrastructure build, the renovation, the improvement for all of that fiber build out. Now, this is all part of a large-scale network modernization that Deutsche Telekom has undertaken over the last several years. This is not something new. It's something that they have put on the forefront of something they deem as important, crucial, and critical that they must attend to with urgency. And honestly, they've got to be able to compete. That's the bottom line. If your competitors are rolling out fiber networking and their networks are better than yours and more reliable, and people are willing to pay for your competitors' services, you got to pivot and adjust. You've got to do the same thing. And of course, these are large-scale, long-term investments, right? This is not a situation where you're investing in the short term and it's not going to come back to you. It's going to be a return of investment for many years to come. So, they've got to compete with companies within their country, which is Germany. Deutsche Telekom also exists in other countries as well as provider of home ISP and wireless. And not just within their home country, but also in their neighboring countries too. And it appears like, they've been pretty much working with copper up to this point. So they've been on a lot of older infrastructure. They haven't been able to really do the speed improvements that they wanted to do for their wireless networking and for the home services. So all of this to say, it's been due. They've had to do this for a while. I'm guessing they held off as long as they could until they had the funding to do it. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But I think the goal is to get fiber to about 4 million new addresses. So they want to serve a lot of customers that can help them generate a lot of revenue. In a related move, Deutsche Telekom is also selling portions of its business ownership in the Netherlands in order to help free up the cash flow and reduce some of the debt in preparation of the infrastructure investment. So basically what Deutsche Telekom is doing is essentially what AT&T just did. For those of you that followed the AT&T media asset diversion, what AT&T did was they were able to reduce their debt load by spinning off their business, their media assets, but keeping 71% ownership stake in that new company. So it's still part of their holdings, right? It's still part of their business when it comes to generating revenue, but they're not going to be utilizing it as an operation piece. It's going to be its own standalone company. And then by doing that, they also were able to offload a lot of debt from the AT&T company. So in doing so, they killed two birds with one stone. And now they have a lot of free investment dollars, the cash flow they can use for competing in 5G and wireless, okay, and fiber, right, wireline services. So that's kind of essentially what Deutsche Telekom is looking to do here as well. So I would expect that in the near term, in the near future, you know, as the fiber project actually originated a few years ago, things should really start to catch traction for Deutsche Telekom. We should see improvements in their performance. And, you know, to be honest with you, they've got a lot on their plate, and I'll kind of sum it up in this way. Their main focus is their core business, which is wireless and wireline in their native country. This project could potentially require about 10 billion euros. That's a lot of money. You know, when you think about $10 billion, I mean, it took Verizon, I think, 4 or 5 years to generate the 10 billion. That they, I don't know if you guys heard about the Fiber One project. I'll talk more about it later. But it literally took them cost-cutting measures over the course of 4 years to generate that 10 billion. So I don't know how long it's going to take Deutsche Telekom to get the investors in to invest 10 billion euros. But with that money, they have effectively planned for the upgrades. I think they want to go somewhere in the neighborhood. It was 600 million euros, and then they want to get that up to 2.5 billion euros. That was planned before this. So they had already planned to do it. But if you look at the scale, even if they go from 600 million, let's call it a half billion euros. Even if they get to 2.5 billion euros, their goal is to get to 10 billion. So they really can only fund a quarter of their project. So they're going to be looking for a big, hefty piece of help from outsiders, from investors, to be a part of this initiative. 2022, by the end of this year, they've got the 2 billion euro investment planned. Remember, 1 euro equals 82 cents. Right? So when you're making that little bit of conversion in your mind, that's how it works. New planned investment would allow them to scale bigger than their initial goal. Remember what I was saying? They wanted to be in 4 million households. If they were to scale at that 4 times rate, that extra money allows them to expand to a lot more homes. They can push it beyond 10 million homes by 2024. So in the next couple of years, we could see a huge build. Here's the problem, and this is why they're reaching out for more money. Deutsche Telekom has 130 billion euros in debt. Does that sound familiar? That's Verizon status. That's AT&T status. I think T-Mobile's a little bit less. I think T-Mobile's more like 90 or so billion or something. I think it's like 80 billion the last I checked. I'm not sure what other, I don't know if they're writing off any debt for T-Vision or anything. We'll have to wait and see on that. But, you know, there is revolving debt with these companies. But that's a lot of debt for a wireless telecom in Europe, relatively speaking. So they want to attempt to buy out SoftBank's shares. You guys know about the T-Mobile and Sprint merger. Deutsche Telekom wants to be the majority shareholder. They want to have 51% control of the T-Mobile company, right? T-Mobile USA. And they would be doing so. In order to do that, they'd have to buy them outright from SoftBank. So there is some speculation that if and when the project is completed for this fiber build, that Deutsche Telekom could potentially get out of telecom and then completely walk away from the business, right? And they would just be, you know, investing, take that fiber investment that they got and then just utilize that as an asset. So that's an interesting, I would be really shocked if that was to play out so perfect like that, honestly. But the reason I wanted to talk about Deutsche Telekom with you guys tonight is because that is the T-Mobile US parent company. So anything that they do, I mean, could potentially have repercussions in their investment on the US side of T-Mobile. So they've got a lot of debt. They want to invest in fiber infrastructure, and they also want to have a bigger piece of T-Mobile in the USA. So this is a fluid situation. I'll keep you guys posted. I'll let you know more if anything comes up of this, and I'm definitely tracking it.